We should have noticed sooner. Oda has been telling us who the traitor was all along, and he might have low-key self-reported in his chapter. The traitor was Oda, actually, for letting our round-hanging things turn cobalt, knowing there are currently 2 Yonko and a legend on the move, but he doesn't show it to us. But we're good, because what if I told you we would get someone getting their head blown off with a blicky, someone's durability being compared to Kaido, and Sanji going full simp enhanced Germa mode? Would that intrigue you? Well, say no more, because we might have just realized the true intent of this arc and how history can truly repeat itself. But before we begin, there are 3 major things we need to remember to truly understand this chapter. 1, Vegapunk's mindset and his approach to creating and research, and how his forward thinking could actually be taking us backwards. 2, the Lunarian's power and how it works is truly devastating, so props to Zoro for being able to deal with a dark skin like Owlbear. Right? And 3, the manipulation and villainy of this arc screams the return of a certain Birdman who walks weird. But it really goes back to our first point, Vegapunk's mindset and how we got here. But of course, there's another one, number 4. We have another statue of Usopp. Okay, I thought things would go differently since the last time he faced the little girl. Anyway, Vegapunk, or Stella for the sake of continuity, is not an evil person, most would say, as there have been morally good things he's done to make the world, in his big mind, a better place. He did not want the creation of the gas weapons. He refused to involve children in his gigantification process and made a vow to create amazing inventions to make the world, again, a better place. His geothermal heating systems to his cooking machine shows that he wants good things for the world, but Stella has split into 6 different personalities, okay? Good, evil, thinking, wisdom, violence, and greed. So yes, he looks like a goofy old scientist without a bad bone in his body, but we literally have evil, violence, and greed deriving from the Stella body. Listen, I'm not saying he's the imposter. I'm just saying he is responsible. The whole mindset of Vegapunk, when you look at it, is progress. But progress is a slow process, except when you don't care of the adverse effects. His grand scheme is to create an entire sea of knowledge using all of humanity, updating punk records on a daily basis while sharing a brain like him and his clones do. Jimmie asked him, okay, what about issues with ideology and things of that nature? And Vegapunk pretty much said, we can't advance if we worry about things like that. But his exact mindset is probably why we're here in the first place. We're currently in a very intense One Piece Egghead version of Among Us, but I think we have more players than we actually invited, because the traitor in my mind from week to week has been Shaka, Lilith, Stella. At one point it was even blaming Caribou and the Gorosei, yes, the old one who's supposed to be on his way with Kizaru. Maybe I was losing it, and I still am. I've actually come to the realization that I have no idea who the traitor is, but I have a few theories. With Stella's mention of how his brain works, I suppose all of them, he's currently not directly connected to his brain, but is using brain waves to connect, kind of like a Bluetooth. With this coming into play, this leaves the brain as a growing organism which isn't monitored mostly and is only updated. So this has been leading most One Piece YouTube scholars to the belief that the actual traitor could be the AI itself created by this brain. Now, the idea behind this is that the brain is protecting itself through the use of manipulation via failed Seraphim. We know for a fact Stussy was not the only clone. Do we think the current Seraphim were the only experiments? We saw in chapter 1071 the Frontier Dome deactivated on its own, right? Letting CP0 into Egghead, which Shaka even says he couldn't see anyone in the monitors. So unless Shiryu or another made its way onto Egghead, it seems like the island is operating on its own. This does sound crazy, but when you think of Stella's ambitions, with no worry of the other side in regards to advancements, so many things have gone wrong for him in this short time we've been in Egghead. But I did reference moonwalking with Stella in regards to how his actions could be showing us a glimpse of how things were in the past. Stella is said to be 500 years advanced into the future, which means his contemporaries are the people more so of the ancient kingdom. The kingdom had 20 kings ally against them, including the Nefertari family, who decided not to ascend to marry Joa, so it wasn't about power for them. It was about stopping the kingdom from possibly, I don't know, destroying the world. Stella is after the power source that powered the ancient kingdom, which could be reminiscent of the ancient story of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun. Did the ancient kingdom go too far and they had to be stopped by the powers back then? Did Joy Boy abandon his mission of meeting with Poseidon to help stop this kingdom to preserve the future? The Gorosei, even in the midst of being downright obnoxious at times, were they wrong? Could this be the decision that Rayleigh spoke of with Luffy? This arc is proof that Stella's ambitions have consequences, and they could have manifested in the form of his own brain turning against him for survival and preservation. This AI could have contacted the world government, and that could be why Saturn is currently on his way to Egghead. The consequences could have been materialized into a known manipulator who we know and love. Yes, S-Flamingo. But this is even crazier than the AI, considering whomever gave the Seraphim the order had to have the authority of the Vegapunks or the Gorosei. But think about what's happening in Egghead, okay? Straw Hats and the satellites are trapped and they are being taken out one by one, and I've even thought about the traitor being one of their own. This is straight up Doflamingo's alley, and the fact that Shaka just got his head blown off by a pistol, it screams evil. It screams Dofi. But again, the issues remain with how he would be able to override the orders that were given. But keep in mind, we have not seen the villain Seraphim as yet. Were they deemed failures? Yes, S-Flamingo is technically a celestial dragon, but does that qualify the same way as a Gorosei would? I mean, I guess he could also create clones using his devil fruit, or he could be straight up working with the AI to cause chaos and also to protect themselves. The sheer astonishment in Stella's eyes means it has to be someone least expected, maybe a clone of himself, or someone he thought he could control or trust, like the failed Seraphim. No, not really trust the failed Seraphim, but something he could control. And it seems like a lot of things going on in Egghead are things Vegapunk thought he could control. But what this chapter also made me consider, of course, through the crafting of this S-Flamingo takeover fanfiction, is how much personality we're seeing from the Seraphim, in particular S-Snake. For the others, we can't expect that much, as they aren't necessarily the most talkative with Jinbei, Kuma, and Mihawk, so S-Snake talking the most makes sense for a variety of reasons, right? Her personality, it's the most outgoing from a human counterpart, and she will play a major role in the future of this arc because we already know her powers cannot be reverted unless done by S-Snake or Boa herself. So unless Boa is making her way to Egghead, we need her to free the others, or else the fourth statue of Usopp is going to be permanent, all right? I'm really perplexed, or rather impressed, at the sheer strength of the Seraphim, and Fujitora, he saw this coming, all right? They did not need the warlords anymore, or so they think. This chapter is telling me that history could repeat itself in numerous ways. Yo, wouldn't it be hilarious if the Marines replaced the warlords with clones to listen to them, and then in the final war, they end up doing the same exact things as their counterparts? Just beautiful irony. But Speed, I mentioned it earlier, and can we give Sanji some love in here? I mean, the last update was Sanji in 2F Building B, and he managed to make it to Nami in 3F Building A, and I know the distance is not that crazy considering the location. He was there the instant she started screaming, which some people are saying this gave Stussy enough time to go and clock to assassinate Shaka, but this just tells me there was no danger where they were. Plus, Jinbei should still be there, but Sanji's Germa mode being activated and us being able to tell via his eyebrows being changed, that would be insane if it's consistent, especially with the power boost he gets, meaning that he's so much better than his siblings, as he has the option to turn it on and off, but he retains his humanity. I actually love it. But Kaido, being mentioned in this chapter, feels like a reach, but we saw the Seraphim seemingly being able to take more punishment than Violet Myers, as they just got up and dusted themselves off after devastating attacks from a Yonko, his right hand, and two very capable powerhouses, okay? Fujitora's foresight is just looking better and better, and we have to think about the humanity of it all. Did Fujitora know or understand what it meant to replace the warlords with clones? Does he approve of them being essentially slaves but having their own soul and personality? Morality in this chapter is being brought into question at varying levels when you dive deeper, like S-Sharp, but you end up hitting a stone wall when you try to figure out the reason Frankie and those boys were turned to stone by Baby Boa. Thank the Lunarians it was not Sanji, or Twitter would never shut up about it. I wonder what they have to say now. Was it cuteness, attraction, or the other thing? Either way, it does seem to be the cuteness, but it does feel a bit iffy. Sentomaru did scare me a bit at the possibility of a worse event than what happened to Ohara happening, and I instantly thought of Lelouchia, but the government is trying to retain the resources of Vegapunk, or Egghead, so that helps in this scenario. But what if they decide to cut bait after Saturn deems it unsalvageable? I doubt this happens, but I do understand why Sentomaru would be cautious of being wiped out. But speaking of being wiped out, how strong was the world government to wipe out all of these Lunarians, considering the punishment they can take? I know it's about the individual, as their defenses with the flame on is quite impressive, but we have to see how they can hang with it off. Would they stack up in terms of what Albert was able to do against Zoro, which took Conqueror's coding to overcome a monster like him? But one thing we can all agree on is Zoro's an idiot. We love him, he's strong and reliable, but thinking that is not what we look to him for. But him calling out the features of King and not noticing them till now is gold. And I don't know, but has Rob, Lucci, and Kaku officially joined the crew? I don't know. Those expressions have never been made by those guys, and it feels so great having them on our side. I don't know, I can't deny it. One last point about the Seraphim and S-Snake turning the Straw Hats back is the idea of how it happens. S-Snake met Luffy before and didn't fawn over him, but think about Luffy and Boa. It wasn't immediate, it was actions over time that won Boa over, from hiding Sandersonia's back to freeing those in captivity, and these things would probably progress the same way for S-Snake to revert to the natural instincts and help Luffy. The reason why they can't fully turn the Seraphim is because the world government needs them much more than the Straw Hats or we do at this point. Oda recently talked about Sanji's eyebrows in an SBS. I should talk about that next because Sanji is officially underrated. The absolute last point before I get out of here, because I have been going on. Because the One Piece fanbase is just crazy and obsessive, people went back to chapter 908 to evaluate the Gorosei's steps when they were walking to meet Imu, and they concluded that it made the same clock noise. I don't want to say that's the Gorosei, but I don't want to say that's not the Gorosei. It would be extremely high. There's also mention that Caesar and Judge could be the culprits, and that's why they're shown in the cover story, and also the mention of Vegapunk getting in their way. Things to consider. Subscribe to the channel. Much more to come. Catch you in the next one. Peace.